Fox News alert, just moments from now, President Trump will meet with a group of senators, including several red state Democrats, who he hopes will support his Supreme Court pick and other agenda items. This a day after his choice for the nation's highest court, Judge Neil Gorsuch, called the president's recent criticism of the judiciary, quote, disheartening and demoralizing. This is Outnumbered. I'm Meghan McCain. Here today, Harris Faulkner, Sandra Smith, Fox News political and legal analyst Ebony Williams, and today's hashtag one lucky guy, Fox News roaming correspondent at large, veteran journalist Geraldo Rivera. Sir, you are outnumbered.
I love it.
Hey. On this very snowy day.
Happy snow day.
Yeah, really. You're just trumping through the snowdrifts?
I would use that as a verb. That's interesting.
And it's still coming down out there.
A verb.
Yeah.
All right, we got a lot to get to. So Judge Gorsuch's nomination certain to top the agenda when President Trump has lunch with lawmakers, including 6 Democratic senators minutes from now. 4 of those Democrats, John Tester, Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Manchin, and Joe Donnelly, all up for re-election next year in states President Trump won handily. The high-stakes meeting follows reports Judge Gorsuch disagrees with the president's recent criticisms of the judiciary. Those sentiments disclosed by Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, who met with him yesterday.
My strong hope is that he will be more vehement publicly. He certainly expressed to me that he is disheartened by the demoralizing and abhorrent comments made by President Trump about the judiciary.
This morning, President Trump blasting the lawmaker on Twitter, saying, quote, Senator Richard Blumenthal, who never fought in Vietnam when he said for years he had, major lie, now misrepresents what Judge Gorsuch told him. Meantime, while President Trump's own confirmation team for Gorsuch confirms that he made those remarks, they say he did not use the word abhorrent and that he was not referencing in any specific cases. I'm going to go, obviously, to you first, Geraldo. What do you make of all this?
Well, I think a lot of things, Megan. Thanks. I think, first of all, in political terms, I think Judge Gorsuch has done a brilliant thing by distancing himself from Donald Trump if he hopes to get the necessary Democratic senators he needs to get the 60 votes to beat the filibuster and get his confirmation to the high court. So politically, I think Gorsuch did a brilliant thing. On the substantive side, it's like wah wah. It's a little whiny to me. Disillusioned, disheartened. I mean, my goodness, grow up. President Trump has a right to make a comment. And what I notice is, Megan, and it really is something that irks me because we have such short memories in the news business. I remember so specifically when the George W. Bush appointee stopped President Obama from expanding the DREAM Act. In other words, they were Republican attorneys general who asked that this federal judge in Texas stop this nationwide program to expand the DREAM Act, and the judge did. He stopped it. The Obama administration said, oh, the judicial activism, oh, these right-wing judges are doing this and so forth. And now you're hearing the same language from exactly the other side when it comes to this case in the Ninth Circuit to stop the refugee ban for being withheld by this judge. I just think that grow up. People criticize the judiciary. It's not it's not going to change anybody. They're not going to be intimidated by it. And I think that way too much is being made about Donald Trump's comments.
Well, certainly I agree, Geraldo, that Donald Trump is not the first president to criticize the judiciary. That there's definitely wide-standing precedent for that. But I think this is where Judge Gorsuch is coming from. Probably never in his life did he think that he would be working on behalf of Donald J. Trump, but he spent his life being a part of kind of the fraternity of the judiciary, right? And I think that means something to a lot of these judges. We've both appeared before lots of judges, worked with them, alongside them, and I think that they take it very seriously, kind of the camaraderie around it. And I believe the quote he gave to Republican Senator Ben Sasse, he said, an attack on any brothers or sisters of the robe is an attack on all judges. So politically, the authenticity of how much he believes that, I guess we'll never know. But I do agree with you politically. It's very good cop, bad cop, and I think it really endears him to the judiciary and certainly maybe to the Democrats he needs to get through.
But if this is an effort of Judge Gorsuch to show his independence from the president, and we're all identifying that here on the couch, is this something that Democrats would actually buy?
that this is really an independent judge. Hey, listen, I think Gorsuch isn't my first choice. Merrick Garland is my first choice for that job. But I think Gorsuch is the second most qualified candidate that I've heard of. And, you know, obviously his politics, if indeed he wants to undermine some aspects of Roe v. Wade, I have not seen that in his judicial track record yet. He seems a pretty traditional conservative guy. He's taking Antonin Scalia's seat, the most right-wing, anti-activist judge and originalist that you could find. So I think that Gorsuch may be the right guy. Wow. He may be the one guy who gets through relatively unscathed.
I don't even think he'd really have to try this hard. I mean, I'm a little curious as to why he felt like he needed to weigh in, but he doesn't really have to try hard to get Democrats to like him. I mean, the former Solicitor General for Barack Obama, Kat Yall, said that he was very fair, he's conservative, he loved working with him on the lower court. He's meeting right now with one of the two Republicans, or met about an hour ago, with one of the two Republicans who voted against the Education Secretary nomination of Betsy DeVos, Susan Collins of Maine. So he's doing some reach out there. We know the president's going to be meeting with more moderate Democrats regarding Gorsuch. Many of them have had great things to say about him. I just would question him. Why would you weigh in politically at this point? What do you need to do that for?
I obviously am only theorizing here, but his fear is spite. That's his fear. His fear is that the Democrats...
You mean within the justices on the court?
Within the confirmation process. He's afraid that the Democrats, because Merrick Garland did not get a hearing, they are so angry at that. They think that the Republicans
Is that why he met with Merrick Garland as his first meeting after the nomination?
And that shows how slick he is. That shows that this guy knows the score.
Let me jump in because we have some fresh reaction from Senator Blumenthal. Peter Doocy just spoke with him. He is insisting that he did not embellish or misremember his interaction.
I believe him.
I don't think he did. It was corroborated. We've got two Republican senators saying exactly the same thing. I think, maybe we could talk about the semantics, but he said that he was disheartened, and I think he takes serious issue with it. So to your point, Harris, the fact that politically he doesn't need to try so hard, I agree with you, makes me buy it more. Makes me buy it more that maybe he authentically has a problem.
So how should the president take a person who would then criticize the way that he is doing his job?
But wait. So here's what Peter Doocy is reporting after speaking with Blumenthal. He's saying Gorsuch needs to publicly defend the judiciary against the president's attacks. Where's that going to go?
Saying that?
Yeah. This is Blumenthal calling on Gorsuch to publicly defend.
Well, I mean, this is all politics. Blumenthal is a big Democrat, so he's going to call for any attack against Donald Trump and the way he's handling this. But I actually think, I don't even know, Gorsuch to me seems like, again, also just speculating, a very decent human being who's not very political.
Very well liked.
Very well liked, very great reputation, respected. So I think he's probably just speaking authentically from the heart. I would implore our president not to come out and attack him. It'll be a bad look for everyone all around. It will give Democrats more ammo. I'm actually fascinated. Joe Manchin, Joe Donnelly, Heidi Heitkamp, John Tester, all red state Democrats, one in Democratic state, or excuse me, Democrats who won in Republican states that Donald Trump won handily. Heidi Heitkamp in particular was speculated to join the administration from North Dakota, didn't end up doing it. What I want to know, these Democrats meeting with President Trump, are they going to be eviscerated by people like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, trying to reach out and put an olive branch to our president? Are these the sacrificial lambs for the left right now?
I think they will be
when that meeting takes place. Right? These are all great questions to see what happens after.
I mean, but to talk about evisceration, I mean, Donald Trump, what he did to Blumenthal, bringing up his Vietnam record, I think that those kinds of things are petty. And
also, people who haven't served in general shouldn't talk about other people, not, like, 100%.
I totally agree with that.
All right, we are awaiting a decision right now from a federal appeals court on President Trump's travel ban. Remember, they put the word out yesterday it wasn't going to come then, so could it come today? Meanwhile, White House Policy Director Stephen Miller is ripping into the media coverage. Watch.
It is extremely dishonest, and it is frankly contemptible the way that false statements have been made about the president's lawful, necessary, and fully constitutional action. It is dishonest, it is false, and it is wrong.
Meanwhile, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, sworn in just moments ago, is weighing in on President Trump's immigration order.
We need a lawful system of immigration, one that serves the interests of the people of the United States. That's not wrong, that's not immoral, that's not indecent. We admit 1 million people a year plus who lawfully, and we need to end this lawlessness that threatens the public safety, pulls down wages of working Americans.
So yesterday, and really the better part of this week, we have seen the Associated Press, the Wall Street Journal, and others come out and say, not in defense of anyone, but just pointing out the facts that there have been people arrested, people coming into this country from those 7 countries. Because very early on, the 7 countries that the president had put as part of his travel ban, that was criticized, saying, oh, well, we never see suspected terrorists coming from there. So I first want to get your thoughts on that.
On what aspect? If you're asking me whether or not this,
or even if that matters,
if this one federal judge has the right to temporarily stop the president from imposing this refugee ban, my thought is that has to be litigated. For example, there is no doubt but that the president has the authority by statute. There is a law that says he can stop anybody he damn wants to. It's totally his call, except if he's trying to get around the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. That is, the law is subordinate to the Constitution. If they're trying to do a Muslim ban and disguise it as a regional ban, but that is wouldn't you agree, Harris, that that's a question of fact? Is it, or did they really try, as Giuliani said, wink, wink, we're going to try to, we'll really want to keep the Muslims out, the extremists out?
Through its spokespeople and others who talk on behalf of the administration, whether or not they're appointed to or not, their argument to that is just simply, then there would be other majority Muslim countries that would be on the list. So say you.
What I say is this is all a question that somebody has to determine what's true and what's not true.
But why is that if it's within the power of the president?
Here's the issue. This is a temporary restraining order. In other words, as George just said, hold it a second.
On a pause.
Hold it a second. We're going to try and figure this out. The president is appealing that temporary ban.
Right.
The government has not yet provided compelling evidence that this temporary pause is irreparably harming the federal government. The states, on the other hand, who are suing the federal government, are saying, wait a second, we've got students who can't get back to their state universities, we've got couples that are broken up, we've got little children waiting to get to their parents. But
that goes back to the point of how much has the media confused a lot of this?
Yes.
Because the coverage has not exactly been honest and fair.
Well, I agree with that too, but I think that it is clear the president of the United States is not as popular with the media as he is with 52 or 3% of the American people.
Well, I don't think that that's fair. You don't think that we're capable of doing our jobs? All right, I'm going to move on to you, our other attorney on the couch. So in my interviewing this week, I have found out that in addition to the colleges, there's some budgetary issues that these states, particularly Washington, are trying to show that are how they're being harmed.
Financial harm, yes.
Right, but we're looking for human harm, aren't we? When you talk the First Amendment, isn't that what you're talking about?
Not necessarily, Harris. Yeah, I mean, as Geraldo accurately points out, it's really several elements that are being evaluated. And ultimately, this issue of whether or not the ban, the travel ban at its core is truly inroads to a Muslim ban, and is it an inroads to a First Amendment violation, that is being factually determined. Unfortunately, I think President Trump's own words and those of his surrogates might be their own worst enemy around this issue. I think, unfortunately, some things on the campaign trail and things were said are causing legitimate speculation as to the true nature.
To the election.
Yes, absolutely. And we heard that, you know, anyone listening to the arguments, that is what these states' attorneys argued. What is the true nature of this ban? Is it simply around national security interests as being presented now, or is it, you know, a shield, if you will?
So the litmus test has to be based on what he previously said?
It's all of it.
How would you ever discover intent?
It's in its totality of its circumstances, and ultimately the judges around this, Harris, will be determining what the intention is.
How long do you think this is going to take?
I think you get a judgment on the restraining order maybe by today. And I think 2-1 it will be upheld.
Can I add that I think it will be upheld, although I think it could be narrowed, only because I heard a lot of language around long-term permanent residents. They seem to really prefer that categorization, and perhaps they give them special treatment.
All right. Wow.
Of the office upon which I am about to enter.
Of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
The vice president today swearing in Senator Jeff Sessions as Attorney General after the big controversy ahead of his confirmation vote. Senator Elizabeth Warren excused from the floor after reading a letter written by Coretta Scott King. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying she was impugning Sessions' character after the Senate voted to confirm Sessions. Warren lit up Twitter, and here's just a sample of that. If Jeff Sessions makes even the tiniest attempt to bring his racism, sexism, and bigotry into the Justice Department, he'll hear from all of us. And you better believe every senator who voted to put Jeff Sessions' radical hatred into the Justice Department will hear from all of us, too. Consider this my warning, she said. We won't be silent. We will speak out, and we will persist. And there you have it, Geraldo Rivera.
Well, you know, I think that the Democrats basically disappeared as a political party on November 8th. They were so ineffective and so disorganized, so dysfunctional, so dispirited that they almost ceased to exist as an organization. Who picked up the pieces, what was left of it? Elizabeth Warren and Al Franken and the far left of the Democratic Party in the United States Senate. They are now all that is left. They are trying to refashion a new purpose in life,
a good way to do it?
A new institution. But who's she appealing to? She doesn't have to appeal to you or me. She's appealing to the people who are both fearful of Donald Trump and angry that a minority popular vote president is in the White House and that they missed the ball on.
Well, I'm tweeting that out right now, what you just said.
Well, there you go.
I can't wait to get the response from that, so I'll report back.
But I mean, at some point, they've got to stop, look at themselves, and decide, is this strategy of trying to get in the way of every one of Donald Trump's cabinet nominations, is this a good one?
I'm fascinated by what she's doing right now because she's ostensibly bullying Democrats and pulling them even more to the progressive left, which I don't know if you're Senator Heidi Heitkamp or Joe Manchin, if you're necessarily going to want to get on that bandwagon. What she's doing, as I said yesterday, setting herself up for 2020. She's the new avatar of the left in every significant way. The hashtag Elizabeth or Liz 2020 was trending all over Twitter. Interesting thing, when I said this is all about publicity and money, her book deal was announced this week with the title, This Fight is Our Fight, The Battle to Save America's Middle Class. She went on Rachel Maddow last night. All this is about is clicks, hashtags, publicity, and getting money for her book and taking the Democratic Party even further to the left. So that's it.
Ebony, I want to bring you in on this Washington Times op-ed, which speaks to the resistance by Elizabeth Warren and other Democrats that is worrying the party. Ms. Warren's ultra-liberal politics are going to be a hard sell in states like North Dakota. In fact, 5 Democratic senators are up for re-election in traditional red states in 2018. Democrats are going to have to decide whether they want to defend those seats or sacrifice them in the name of the resistance, which Ms. Warren clearly thinks she's heading. Ebony?
Yeah, look, the Democratic Party is going to have to make a decision around what their identity is going forward. Many people think that, you know, working with President Trump is going to come at a huge consequence. I think Elizabeth Warren, what she's doing here could be effective. I'm going to tell you why. Something that Mitch McConnell said, she was warned, she was given an explanation, nevertheless, she persisted. She is using his own words against him. That became a huge trending meme on Instagram yesterday. You've got tons of, you know, kind of feminist, iconic women. A meme? It's
Geraldo.
I don't know what a meme is. I always see it.
And that quote is like plastered on her. So what that's doing, to Geraldo's point, many people are very delighted with the actions of President Trump. The other half are horrified and sick to their stomach. So to those people, they are maybe impassioned by this type of language.
But can I tell you, Wendy Davis was a big hashtag. She was a big liberal left icon. She ended up losing historically.
But she was in Texas.
But I have yet to see evidence that these marches, these memes, these hashtag revolutions online translate in any significant way to
fair point.
The middle of the country.
And that's why I say it's going to be a risk. And so I'm not saying it's a surefire method, but I do think that probably this is as best of an avenue to get people engaged and turn out places where they failed to do so in November.
Can I ask you this question, though? And you two often talk about your differences on feminism.
Yes.
How does this help the woman's cause? And I mean the woman like all of us, like one singular woman. How does this help the woman's cause when you have her kind of, and she did this on the first night, kind of alluding to the fact that she was shut down and others who defended her, she was shut down based on the fact that she was a woman?
I'll tell you this, there were 4 Democratic male senators who were eventually able to read the letter from Coretta Scott King. Now, there's a difference there. Elizabeth Warren inserted some of her personal viewpoints, and that's why McConnell was able to, insert that rule. But that is the messaging. If you don't know anything about that nuance, Harrison, you're just a young woman watching this, optically, you see men doing something that Elizabeth Warren wasn't able to do.
Well, the other nuance that people need to know about is that she broke a rule, Rule 19.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but if you don't know the rules, then it looks bad.
Rule schmool.
We've got to.
I mean, I saw what's his name, Ted Cruz, called Mitch McConnell a liar on the Senate. And anybody imposing any rules. It's just
she's just doing it to sell books and to try and get elected president.
They're going to fight. They're going to be a street fight, a knife fight.
We are hearing from top military officials about what they say is the insidious decline of our armed forces.
Top brass are sounding the alarm about the readiness of our military. Watch what the Vice Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral William Moran, told lawmakers during a pair of hearings this week.
We come before you and talk about making tough choices. This year is more of the same, and our long-term readiness continues its insidious decline. So while we're still able to put our first team on the field, our bench is largely depleted.
Just a few of the concerns. More than 60% of the Navy's F-18 Hornets are out of service. The Marines have it worse. 74% of their F-18s are not ready for combat. And across the board, funding cuts brought down the number of fighters, bombers, tanks, and warships to the lowest point since World War II. Those are some disturbing things to hear, Megan.
Listen, when I was going over this story this morning, to say this breaks my heart doesn't even put it lightly. Everyone on this couch supports and loves the military. And my biggest ideological problem with non-interventionists, and Democrats have been for a long time, is that when you broadcast to our enemies, you can do whatever you want to us at any given time, and our military probably won't react, and we probably won't do anything to stop you. The morale of the military goes down, and we aren't giving these men and women the tools that they need to fight if, God forbid, we come to that point. And the fact that it's shown in all these statistics you just read, it just makes me very sad. This happened under Obama. You cannot put any blame at the feet of Donald Trump. He's only been president for 2.5 weeks. And I hope that this is one of the things he starts off first and foremost with General Mattis to fix as soon as possible.
So I would ask how you first attack this, because now we're fighting clearly a war on two fronts with cyber warfare too. I mean, look at all of the hackings of our government and look at what they have done. I mean, it's really irrespective of the election or anything that's happened in the last 6 months, even before that. So we've got to fight that too. But war levels at World War II for our machinery, our equipment?
Let's start where Megan leaves off. We all support the strongest military possible. We also spend lavishly more money on our military than any other nation by far, per capita and any other way you want to measure it. We spend a lavish amount. And I just caution this. While we want F-18 Hornet fighter jets to fly, on the other hand, how many of these appropriations are because of lobbyists who lard on, as the president correctly pointed out in the F-35, larding on hundreds of millions of dollars? How much of the precious taxpayer money that we spend on the military goes to a political sucking machine that just gets as much? And how many,
So are you more confident now under this president, perhaps?
I think that
somebody who didn't need loyal or lobbyists to get into the White House. I'm seeing you nod on
Well,
this.
that was going to be my point, is that, I agree with Megan. When we broadcast, our intentions beforehand, we undermine their ability and we do us all collectively a disservice. But like Geraldo said, let's not pretend like we don't spend $597 billion. So it's not, a lack of spending. Yes, there were cuts, but there's still an incredible amount of money going there. It's the way it's being spent. It's the stewardship around all of these millions and millions and billions of dollars that's really the problem. And whether we see a better result under President Trump, certainly for America's sake, I hope so.
So let me share with you what the Vice Chief of Naval Operations said. We know we're too small for what we're being asked to do today. A smaller fleet operating at the same pace is wearing out faster. Work has increased, and we're asking an awful lot of our sailors and Navy civilians to fix it. There's a huge problem there. Don't you think it is the... I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. I'll let you go wherever you were going to go, Geraldo.
No, I have no real idea. I know that sequestration, this mandatory limiting of budget increases, has impacted the military, maybe disproportionately. I don't know that. But having been on 22 major combat assignments in Afghanistan and Iraq, I saw an awful lot of money being, for instance, I was on the last convoy out of Iraq. We thought it was the last combat convoy in 2011. When I looked in the rearview mirror, we had 1,000 Ford F-150 pickup trucks that we left behind. that all of the civilians climbed over the fence and they took. I mean, there is amazing wastage. I'm sorry. I think that President Trump, because he knows business, he could look at the Boeing deal, and Boeing is saying patriotic. We got to do for America and everything. It's really for Boeing. It's not for America.
But think of the people who were running this. Again, you have a president who, in my opinion, wasn't totally committed. It's a fact. He pulled us out of Iraq and Afghanistan, so he wasn't committed to giving us the most robust military possible. Donald Trump is first and foremost a businessman, and if he can cut some of this fat, as you're saying, fantastic. But I also think there is a moral issue here. Excuse me, the fact that you're not supporting our troops, you're not supporting the military, of course they're not going to care what happens. So there are political implications with this as well. We got to move on. All right, House Democrats hold their winter retreat this week, and with next year's midterms looming, the party faces a growing rift over how to deal with President Trump for the next 4 years. Some say go after him hard and all the time. Others saying that could be political suicide. House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer telling Politico, quote, opposition for opposition's sake, even if we think the policies proposed are good for the American people, I think the public would not think that's our responsibility or duty. But caucus chairman Joe Crowley, a vocal critic of the president, says while he does not want the party to get, quote, dragged into the pettiness of Trump, he says what our caucus needs to know is that their leadership has backbone. If the new president wants to mix it up, well, we'll go there. Okay, I'm going to go to you first, Ebony. Do you go nuclear on Donald Trump, or do you try and work for him?
I think the smart thing is there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? I think if the Democrats are really going to be smart and strategic here, they play both sides. I think they let people that are in states where the cooperation with the president around things like infrastructure, maybe some pharmaceutical sales issues, things where there's common political ground, let them work with him and get results that will bode well for them politically and ultimately for the party. Now, for the super left side of the party, the Liz Warrens, the Al Frankens, the Bernie Sanders, let them be nuclear. Let them be the almost moral opposition of Donald Trump, and let both of those, understand that they're working hand in hand, and let the party do what's for the best interest of those within the party.
Yeah, what do you think?
Don't tie their hands like that.
I think that we have very short and selective memories. How many times did we vote to repeal and replace Obamacare? How many votes were there? 40, 50? Yeah. I mean, please, now the Republicans are saying, oh, the Democrats should cooperate. Baloney. This is a fight. Right now, the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. The Republicans can force this agenda right now. They should stop this crying about the Democrats. The Democrats will find their way or they won't. But right now, the Republicans have a mandate. Stop looking to the Democrats. Let them be their own anarchistic selves. Focus on the president's agenda. Get through what you can get through. You've got a majority in the Senate. You've got a majority in the House of Representatives. Shame on you if you can't get your stuff passed.
Harris, it may be as simple as it's just a fractured party, much like the Republican Party still is.
Well, so it's interesting what Geraldo is saying, because I would have thought you would have probably championed more bipartisanship, particularly with what's going on at the White House
the older
today,
I get, the more realistic.
Ahead of the Judge Neil Gorsuch's potential confirmation, at least confirmation hearing, the president meeting with those more moderate Democrats to try to bring them on board. Like to get those votes Republicans would, so they wouldn't have to use the nuclear option. But we'll have to see what happens. I would have thought you went there. But what you're saying is astute, because there is nothing you can do about the Democratic Party right now to get along with them, because they can't get along with themselves. And I think it is so optimistic of you to think that the far left people would actually just kind of sit in their seats.
If they're smart, Harris, what they're going to say is our party is on the brink of irrelevancy, as Geraldo completely
but the votes were going, even though they were quashed, the votes were going to that far left. So they need more than just a seat. They need a throne inside that party if they want to try to get votes.
Get there if they undermine the moderate part of their party that at least has some presence. You know what I'm saying? If you force them to do what they're asking, they will then relinquish their presence, and then where does that leave the party?
Politico reports that some Democrats are working quietly to set up meetings with the White House on areas where they might share common ground, like bringing down the cost of prescription drugs.
Why does it have to be quiet?
Because Elizabeth Warren will go nuclear, because she'll turn it into a meme on Twitter. Because
you can't put baby in a corner.
100%. Can't put
California taxpayers
is now shelling out $25,000 a month for former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder to help fight President Trump's agenda in the state. That, according to a contract obtained by a conservative watchdog group. It shows Holder will work 40 hours a month to assist the California legislature with legal challenges over everything from immigration to health care to environmental policies. Judicial Watch calling the deal crony corruption, while a GOP assemblyman claims the contract is illegal and violates the state constitution. There was no immediate comment from Holder's law firm. What do you make of it, Geraldo?
Well, all I know is that works out to $625 an hour, and I pay more than that to my litigators if I'm in court. So I don't think that the price is, Judicial Watch is exaggerating. Eric Holder is an excellent attorney. And this is, this wasn't the topic, but more broadly, what does this tell us? That is going to be the front line in the political wars of America. It's going to be fought out in the courts. It's going to be about sanctuary cities. Yeah. It's going to be about refugee bans. Yep. It's going to be about whether a wall can be put on the southern border when it goes through private property. It's going to be court. The ACLU is now getting record donations.
I guess where one gets confused is you think that you're supposed to do what's best for your state. It doesn't look like that's what's happening here, Evan.
I don't know. Let's talk about the state of California. They voted for Hillary at some 62%. So I think when you talk about the taxpayer and the base and the ideology of California as a state, I got to tell you, I lived in L.A. for 5 years. Most of my friends out there are delighted to see Eric Holder on the payroll. They're happy, literally saying they're happy to see their tax dollars go to him. And, it's all said. There's not a more zealous advocate I could think of if you're trying to argue for the side of sanctuary cities than an Eric Holder.
Do they really understand what a sanctuary city is and what it does? I hear you saying that, and you're the attorney, so do you school them on what the real meaning is? Because maybe they wouldn't be so advocating for it. I
think some of these people, I'm going to give them some credit here, is they understand the consequences that come along with some of that, but ultimately they feel very strongly and very passionately about the moral issue. And for them, that takes
feel strongly about the moral issue of the go-around that a sanctuary city creates for immigration laws in this country?
No, they feel that the alternative is something that they cannot get on board with.
So, Megan, here's what Eric Holder, how he explains what he's being asked to do. I'm just here to assist these gentlemen and the people who they serve within in trying to protect the interests of the people of California.
It is a lot of money, $25,000 a month. I would be certainly angry if I lived in California, but I'm a Republican. Ebony and I both lived in California around the same time. It's socialist country. This is probably the type of thing that people would like. I mean, that is no joke. I'm not kidding. At least Los Angeles, where I lived, was. So I don't think California taxpayers will care.
Yeah,
they'll probably think
San Jose, Santa Barbara, that's right.
Oh, yes, you did as well. But they'll probably think that they are hashtag the resistance, which is apparently the hashtag against Donald Trump right now.
So they'll be all for
it. Yeah, I don't think Californians are going to care.
And did you hear the argument? I'm sorry.
I want to ask you just a real quick question. Could the president cancel his executive order, table this conversation that's going on, and bring a new one that addresses all these things? Why doesn't he do that?
I think that he's already modified it verbally. I have absolutely no doubt. There is no doubt he could take this piece of paper with the executive order and go, here's the new executive order. There's no doubt that he could do that. There's no doubt, and he should do that.
Because
and I also want to say you are so kind. You have a kindness that is rare in the news business.
Are you?
When Ebony was talking about war and the 60%, and then you said, don't they understand?
Oh, boy.
It's like, I just, like, my blood pressure went down. I said, oh, listen to